Boys and girls, today we're going to transform this piece of clay into a puppy. What? I know, it's going to be amazing. Let's talk first though about what is clay. Clay, the kind that we're using, is made from water, which is why it's going to feel a little bit wet, and it's also made from dirt, which you probably know water and dirt together make mud. And that's exactly what clay is. When we're done sculpting our dog out of clay, we're going to let it dry where all the water will leave the clay. That's called evaporating. And once all the water has left the clay, I have to put it in a special oven that will make it stay nice and hard forever. And that oven is called a kiln. But while I'm getting ahead of myself, let's talk about how to make this into a puppy. So first, you'll need to pick a texture. Texture, as you know, is the way that something feels, and there's lots of different textures on your table. I decided to use this one. This is a piece of fabric called burlap. Once you have your texture picked out, lay it on your clay mat and put your clay on top. And when you do it, don't set it gently. You actually are going to thump it down pretty firmly, because what we are trying to do, our goal, is to smush the clay flat so it's about as thick as a cookie. Once you thump it down, you're also going to need to pound on the clay until the whole thing is flat. We don't want to have it where it's all lumpy and bumpy like a mountain. We want it nice and flat. Watch, I'll show you. You can stop pounding when your clay is as big as your oval template. It looks like mine's almost big enough, but I might have to pound it just a little bit more to make it a little bit bigger than my oval template. Looks like it's big enough this time. Now I can peel it off my texture. This is my favorite part because you can see the really cool texture that my clay has now captured. Now I'm going to take my texture, put it face up, and put my template on top. And I need to cut around my clay. That can be a little tricky, so I'm going to use this tool called a skewer. It's very sharp on one end, so be careful. What you need to do is put your skewer in your clay so it stands up nice and straight and tall like a soldier. When you push your skewer down, you should feel it hit the table, and it should be able to stand all by itself. Now I'm going to drag my stick through the clay. It's a little tricky, but you have those really strong muscles in your hands from creating, so you can do it. It always helps if you are always pulling your stick toward you. That makes it a lot easier to drag your stick through the clay. Notice I'm turning or rotating my mat, and I'm always pulling my stick towards me. Done. Now I'm going to make a little opening so I can peel this off. Saving my extra clay because I'm going to be using that for the parts of my puppy's face. And now I can take off my template. Now what I need to do before I do anything else is I need to take a wet finger. Inside of this little dog dish, it's funny that we're using a dog dish, there's a little bit of water and a tiny bit of clay. When you mix water and clay together, it makes kind of like a clay glue that I call slip. So I'm just right now putting a little bit of slip along the edge of my oval to make sure it's nice and smooth. Now I have all this extra clay. I'm going to use this extra clay that I cut from my oval to make my dog's ears. I need 2 ears, so what I'm going to do is split this clay in half just by twisting it. There we go. And if one half seems a little bit bigger than the other, I can take from the bigger piece and give it to the smaller piece so they're even. I'm going to set one down, and to make an ear, I'm going to roll a ball of clay. When you roll a ball, your hands are making circles. In fact, that's what creates the circle. So I'm going to go ahead, and it's almost like I'm clapping my hands. I'm pushing them together, but instead of clapping, I'm rolling a circle. Now, it doesn't even have to be perfect. Now that I have my ball of clay, I can squish it between my fingers, or I can press it onto my mat. I need to make sure that it's about as thick as a cookie. Oh, but do you see how it's cracking a little bit? I can fix that. I'm going to take a finger, put a little bit of my slip on it, And whenever your clay cracks, it's your clay's way of telling you that it's thirsty. It's got dry mouth and it needs a little bit of water, and you just massage that into those cracks like lotion. So now I have one nice looking ear. That looks pretty good and smooth. Maybe I'll set it right there and get this other one ready. So I'm rolling it, squishing it, push it into the table if I need to. Make sure it's as thick as you guessed it, a cookie. If I have any cracks, give it a little bit of slip, and there we go. So I'm going to set those there, and now I could have my puppy's ears. I could maybe have one lifted up a little bit like he's listening, or maybe have them tilted like that. So right now I'm just going to set them on here because I'm not exactly sure where I want them to go. To make the eyes, I'm going to start with the eyeballs. So I'm going to take a piece of clay, roll it into a ball, squish it flat, and this time I can squish it pretty small, but I can already tell that would be way too big for an eye. So if you make something too big, take some of the clay away, roll it up, and try it again. The great thing about clay is that if you make something you don't like, you can just smush it and try all over again. So I rolled it into a ball, and now I'm squishing it, and I see it's a little dry, so you already know what to do. There we go. That's better. And I'm just going to set it here to see what it looks like. Oh yeah, that one looks pretty good. Might have to scoop my ear over a little bit. That's why it was good. I didn't glue everything down with my clay glue or my slip. I've got this other piece. I like my animals to have one big eye and one small eye because I think that makes them look kind of silly. So let's see how this looks. Yeah, that might be pretty good. Maybe scoot that ear over. And I saw that it was cracking, so you know what to do. Now I have the eyeball, but you actually have two more parts to your eye, and so do dogs. You have an iris, that's the colorful part of your eye, and you also have a pupil. Those things are smaller, so I have to make large, medium, and then a little polka dot for small. So now I'm going to pinch off smaller pieces of clay. Roll it, squish. Let's just see. I'm not sticking anything down. I'm just setting it there just to see if I like the way that it looks. Oh, that one looks like it might be too big. So I'm going to pinch some of that off and make it a little smaller. Try again.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I like that.
To create the pupil, I just used the back of my stick, and I just did this to get it to stick. All right, now that I've done my eyes and my ears, let's talk about how to do that part of the dog's face that sticks out or protrudes. That's called a muzzle. We don't have a muzzle. The front of our face doesn't stick out like a dog's face. So to create the muzzle, we're going to do something similar to what we did with the eyes. We are going to take two pieces of clay. Actually, we'll have one piece of clay, and we're just going to have to take it and make it into two. So I'm just going to twist it. There we go. Now that I have two, I'm going to roll one into a ball, just like I did for the eyeball, and squish it flat. Same thing with the other one. And right now, I'm going to set this one right there. Okay, that's where that one will go. Roll, squish. Now I have the dog's muzzle. It looks like two circles. But before I stick this down, I'm going to make something else. I'm going to make a little nose and a little tongue sticking out. So I'm getting a small piece of clay, and I'm just going to break it in half. To make the tongue, I can just roll a little shape, squish, and let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks a little bit like a tongue or maybe a chin. To make the nose, I have to roll a ball, pinch the bottom, flatten the top, and now I have a nice triangle for the nose. So now that I have that, by pinching the bottom and flattening the top, let's see how all that looks. It's looking like a dog. Now I don't have anything stuck down, so to make sure that everything stays, I have to use a little something called clay glue. Clay glue is just our watery glue that we also call slip. So I have to do two things. I have to use the slip, and I have to use my toothbrush because it's going, not my real toothbrush, you sillies. It's a toothbrush just for clay. We're going to use that to scratch into the clay. That is called scoring. So let me take off the pieces that I haven't already stuck down. I already went ahead and stuck those down, and I'll show you how I did it. So I first need to glue down the tongue. So I'm going to flip it over to the back, scratch it with the toothbrush. It'll make it nice and sticky just like glue. Push it down where I want it to go. Same thing with this. Push it down where I want it to go. I don't want to smash it into it because I still want to be able to see my circle shape. And last but not least, okay, I think my puppy looks pretty good. I'm just going to draw with my stick a couple of details. I'm going to use the back of my stick, the part that's not sharp, like I did for my pupils. I'll put a couple of little small indentions or holes. I'm not going all the way through the clay. I'm just barely touching it, and that'll make it look like the part where the whiskers come out. And then if I take the sharp end of my stick and notice I put my finger underneath, drag it through the bottom, now I have the line for the tongue. Piece of cake.